So on the latest episode of the PCT podcast, we are delighted to welcome Danny Bowers. So I want to get straight into it. Good evening, Danny. First and foremost, thank you for taking the time to join us today on the podcast. How are you?
I'm good, mate. And like you say, the list of people you've interviewed, mate, it's a pleasure to be amongst them. So thank you very much, mate.
No, super, mate. I know we're going to get into it as the conversation goes on, but it's quite a deep topic that we're going to be speaking about. But obviously, we're recording this during lockdown 2.0 or 2.0. For those who may not be aware, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is you currently do?
Yeah, well, currently, mate, work-wise, running a tile business with my great team around me, importing tiles into the UK, family business. On the side of that, mate, as you will touch on, doing a little bit on the football side now on the managing, which is good. Good to be getting involved in that and alongside yourself. So, yeah, busy, mate. Lots happening, but it's all good.
Good stuff, mate. Good stuff. One of the reasons we wanted to catch up with you today, Danny, and we'll be quite blunt from the start, is that you came through the academy system from a young age and were released at Scully. I want to discuss that in more depth, but before we go into the sort of nitty-gritty stuff, let's go back to the start, when it all started. How old were you when you got into playing football, and sort of what was your first sort of memory of playing?
Very young. I mean, when you've got a family or father figure like me that was, Stoke mad, football mad, it's inevitable, isn't it? As soon as you can kick a ball, you were going to. So spent many hours as a kid. I still see the pictures now. Playing football in the garden. I was football mad like most kids. No different to any other kid really that loves football. So it was. As soon as I could walk, I was kicking a football. Dad was really good in pushing me and in the garden and getting me involved as much as he could. So as soon as I could play football, mate, I was out there and doing what I could.
So playing grassroots football was an age that you got involved in a team. I know we've spoke off air before, but were you or your parents aware of any interest from sort of local clubs?
It's funny because I spoke, I was 5, I was 5 when I got signed at Stoke, which 5 is just a crazy age, a 5-year-old kid. Tony Lacey, he was the guy that signed me. I was coached by Dave Kevin there for a number of years. Dave was a fantastic coach. I spoke to my mum about it and she just said that I was scouted, playing for a junior team. So at 5, it must have been, what had you done to be spotted at 5? Like you say, was it something, a turn that you did? It's hard, but I was at Stoke at 5 and it's crazy to think, like say at that age that, you could, there's something there that you could be spotted for, but, I was so grateful at such a young age.
I mean, from that, obviously, it was a decision then that was probably taken out of your hands as such, and one taken by your parents. Can you remember any conversations around, Danny, we're now going to take you into Stoke, and was there any realisation of what you were going into?
I think at the first stage, at that young age going to Stoke, we used to train up at the old barn as it was at the Victoria ground. I've still the memories now, just thinking about it are great. You don't really sense at that age that, you're playing at a club at probably a bit different outside the grassroots level until you go down there and you go up to that barn and you've got your Stoke badge on your top, your dad's a Stoke fan, and you hear people talking to your parents a bit more about you, not so much you, but, Danny's at Stoke. And that's when, even at a young age, you think, I must be doing all right. But it doesn't, it's a dream, isn't it? It doesn't really sink in as much at a young age. But it was great.
Was there any, I'm just trying to relate it back to that age, so young, in those conversations, was there a bit of pride coming from those conversations that you heard in terms of, Danny's playing for Stoke, and did you get that buzz off your parents?
Of course he says, yeah, because like you say, when you're like my dad, he was so involved with Stoke and a supporter of the team, and you'd hear, our Danny, and you used to have your little School of Excellence booklet there signed by Tony Lacey with your picture on, and that'd come out in conversations. Go on, show him, Dan, and it was a proud moment. And like I say, I was there from Stoke at the first time till probably 4 or 5 years actually. So it was a long time as a young lad to be, at Stoke from there and playing on the grass pitch that used to be by the A500 at the back of the stands, and we used to clean the stands. We'd run around the pitch at the Vic and the things he had you doing. But it was great memories. It was good.
So you were with Stoke then from the ages of 5 to up until 10, and
Yeah,
I know we discussed off air. You came out of the system.
yeah.
You weren't quite sure if you were released or it was a decision to come out and play back at grassroots.
Yeah.
How did that feel coming away from Stoke and those memories that you had there to then playing grassroots? Were you getting the enjoyment back?
Yeah, it was weird because again, it's weird at that age, isn't it? It doesn't really sink in, but the fact that you'd left a club like that and gone straight away to playing with your mates, so it was quick. It was soon forgotten. I went from there to play first of all in the Cheshire League, which actually I've got no friends there, but the team at the time were a good local team at grassroots level, Malton. So it was out the way of Stoke, but I played there and, scoring goals and, man of the match awards. It was great. And then from there, I moved more local to a team called Silverdale, where I'd got a lot of mates that I still, know now. And that was the moment where I thought, actually, this is good. You're playing football, you're scoring goals, you're enjoying it. There's not as much pressure, you're training 3 times a week as a young age. You're a bit more free, and like I say, you got your mates around you, so it was enjoyable.
I mean, it's something that I want to touch on later on now that you're involved in, obviously, the managing and coaching side of things. But how was the coaching back then? Can you remember any particular styles or coaching methods, or was it anything that sticks to what you did?
Yeah, I mean, I always remember like I say, the old barn. We'd spend, it seemed like hours doing a Cruyff turn, putting your foot on the ball, doing a stop turn, doing a drag back, just in individual spaces where the lads you'd look round and you'd be watching, have I done my drag back as good as him? Or your Cruyff turn as good as him? And you'd have Dave Kevin and he'd show you over and over these turns. And it was quite basic. It was quite basic, Martin. I mean, we'd do that. The games would get stopped a lot, which is something I'll talk further on at another club where, but it was more about, I always remember the notes of moving into space, creating angles and the amount, but yeah, it's certainly changed, mate, certainly changed now. There's a lot more detail into the game and possession play and not so much about when you've got the ball. There was never talk about when you hadn't got the ball. That was, I can never remember any talk of when you've not got the ball. It always tended to be when you're in possession of the ball. So yeah, it's things have changed.
That's quite interesting. I'm just making a note there of, a lot of it was when you had the ball. Would you say then that there was a lot of focus in terms of an individual approach rather than a team?
Good question. Yeah, I suppose there was that sense of, when you got the ball, what you were going to do with the ball. And, you think back now and there was, whether it was just me, but there was a lot of lads that seemed to, it was more dribbling then and getting past players, not so much, having a ball, receiving it back, little 1-2. So again, I don't know whether at the younger age, it was a younger, just because you were younger and you hadn't quite developed that, sense of, thinking about other players. You were sort, what it's like when you're young, it's, how can you impress someone by going past a player and shooting? So whether it was something that did come later on in that age was just a case of, it's hard to, drill into the lads, about the other aspects of training and coaching. I don't know.
I mean, you touched on there, you came out of Stoke and you were at Malton and then more locally Silverdale. Were you aware of any interest then from local clubs? And again, I know we've spoke quite in depth off air. You were getting noticed. You were scoring a lot of goals. Even though you were scoring those goals, were you aware of scouts watching or clubs coming to see you?
Yeah. There was a lot of, particularly down. We used to play at pool fields, and is it a good thing your dad used to drop in your ear that I've heard there's a scout coming down to watch you today? Did it put pressure on you? Did it make you play better? It used to make me very nervous, and sometimes wish he hadn't told me. But then at the same time, I always performed well. So, it's the balance of, was it the right thing? But yeah, I mean, then it wasn't as much, your clubs you were talking about with Stoke Vale and Crewe. It wasn't so much as widespread then, I don't think. It was, the actual local lad playing for his local club. But yeah, there was a lot of talk about it, mate. So I knew that there was clubs watching. You're the forward at the end of the day. When you're scoring goals, it is a bit selfish, but you do get noticed more. I had great lads playing at the back, great midfielders that I can remember now. But when you're scoring 3-4, one season I scored 50, in a season, and you're going to get noticed. And luckily it was I had another opportunity.
So going from an academy setup back into grassroots with your friends and probably enjoying the more social side of things. How did it feel then to be taken back out of your socially happy environment to a more, I'm going to say, a more stricter, disciplined academy environment again?
Yeah, it was. This is when you start to notice it more as you're getting older. So I remember going to, of all teams, Vale. I still get stick for it now. Having a good time there at Vale and coming from Silverdale and going there, and yeah, it did. It was quite nervy. It was nervy first going into a team where you didn't know a lot of the players again. So you've got to go through all that of knowing lads, being shy. You're not at that age really where your confidence is, booming enough to, go straight in and talk to the lads. It took you sometimes 4 or 5 training sessions and games before you felt comfortable speaking to lads. It does make a massive difference at that age, without a doubt. I mean, eventually, you become friends with people. There's like the likes of Adam Soane, Ben Mills, people that I remember at Vale. You do become friends with them, but it's at that age, it's hard. It is hard. Sometimes you think, is it easier just to go and play with your mates, and take that pressure off?
Something you just alluded to there was that, it could take 5 or 6 games or training sessions to get you started in a rhythm and the pressure in there. Do you think we're quite a revolving door sort of academy mindset, so that we get a player, and if they don't make an impact straight away, we don't give them time to develop and show what they're capable of? Because as you mentioned there, you've gone from being a confident lad scoring 5-6 goals a game to suddenly knowing no one and having to perform because that pressure's on you.
Yeah, definitely. You want to go in with a bang, don't you? And you sort of sometimes wish, I wish, the lads I was playing with, grassroots and on a Sunday was an academy level. You felt a bit more free, a bit more relaxed going into games. You could be yourself. So there was the worry that, they don't really know me. They don't really know me as a player and wanting to express yourself because you were nervous. I remember now sitting in the car before games and, I'd sit there sometimes actually thinking, do I want to get out? Even though you knew you were in a good place, it was the worry of, the very nervous, and sort of anxious feeling. Obviously, over time that went, but it's certainly that transition period is definitely, a difficult one.
Something I'm quite interested in is, I've never been in that sort of environment or experience in terms of playing, is that you signed to an academy and you're training 2-3 times a week in games. How did that impact then, as we mentioned, your recreational football? So did you still get to play with your mates, or were you not allowed, and were you able to play school football?
Yeah, school football, different academies, which will go on, like I say, whether it's, when I was moved or played at Crewe, it became a bit more strict there. There was a lot more, we don't really want Danny playing in the school team. We don't want, at younger, at Vale, there was never really a lot of that. I know things have changed and things have become more strict now. I couldn't play, obviously, with my mates on a Sunday as much as you'd want to. That you still wanted to play the game at the end of the day. You wanted to play as much football as you could, whether it was an academy. You still wanted to go and join in with your mates and have fun. So in a way, again, it's a juggling act in it. You were really proud, but at the same time, it was always at the back of your head. Do you want to you just want to play football? You don't realize the importance of, the restrictions you've got playing at an academy level.
So at quite a young age then, obviously from what you've experienced, how did that make you feel then, Danny? Seeing your friends playing their grassroots teams and coming into school, talking about it daily, all while you're part of that social sort of group, but not able to discuss enjoying the game because you're removed from it?
Yeah, it was awkward. It was certainly awkward when I was at high school, and still playing and not playing in the same team as my mates, because again, you'd come into the yard on a Monday morning, got your school bag on, you'd played against a decent team, you'd scored a couple of goals. They all stood in a group going through their game on the Sunday, and it's as though what they didn't really want to listen. Was it a bit of jealousy that they didn't want to know how you'd gone on? You're trying to get involved, and there certainly was a little bit of a divide because there was no one really around who I was playing with was in the same team as me at an academy level, so someone you could really talk to. There was lads in older groups, that I knew, but it was certainly, it was difficult, mate, because you felt left out of conversations about what they were doing at weekends playing football.
So something I'm really interested in from the conversation, and having worked in academy myself, is that You're saying there you felt nervous when you were told a scout was watching. You know, there was pressure to perform, and it might take you 3 or 4 weeks to play. And these thoughts at a young age of saying, well, they don't really know me. How do you think, or from your experience, how can coaches help integrate that smoother? So when they get a trialist in or they get a lad into an academy, how can they make that transition a little bit easier for the player and take away the psychological sort of element from it?
I think now, looking back, just someone to put an arm around you and say, look, we know it's going to be difficult. We know it's going to take a bit of time for you to, you sort of get thrown in. You know, you're thrown in, you go to a coaching session, lads, this is Danny, you're straight in. You know, to someone just to have a chat with you, even before you've started, to have a little conversation before the training, you know, and say, look, I know it's going to be hard. You don't know a lot of the lads. Don't worry. We're not judging you now straight away. And just a, you know, a little voice or someone to talk to you to take that little bit of pressure off might have helped. I don't know, but it wasn't there at the time.
I mean, there's been a lot of focus on, you know, certainly now in the modern game of knowing the person before the footballer, or you get to know your people before you know your players, etc. Or do you feel back on your experience, you weren't known as a person before a player, you were judged as Danny the footballer, not Danny the kid?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, you know, when as a coach's point of view, you've got a lad coming on, you know, trial or joining a club that's been scoring goals, and that's as coach, that's all you know. He's a lad that scores goals. He's supposed to be half decent. No one really knows you. No one knows you as a person. You know, there's a lot of, you know, the stuff. Look, looking back now, there was a lot of things that I could have improved on. Never, you know, I never really felt that you were told too much about the things you could improve on. And yeah, I know things have changed massively, and I see now. I think that more one-to-one focus with players was something, you know, at a younger age that certainly could have helped players, and probably, you know, I think could have helped me as well.
Just going back then, you know, we've mentioned in conversation so far that, you know, you started off at Stoke, came to grassroots. We've mentioned Crewe and Vale. How old were you, and what time scale were you at Crewe and then Vale before we sort of move on to the
Crewe? Crewe was probably 2 or 3 years. It was actually, I'd probably got that the wrong way around, to be honest with you. I went to Crewe thinking about it. So I left grassroots to went to Crewe first time. So for a couple of years, then back at Vale, 12, 13, probably 14. And then, you know, came back, and then it was back to Stoke, which we'll go on to. But yeah, Crewe was great. I really, you know, looking back at Bill Bradley was a good coach at Crewe. We used to train at Shavington. The professionalism of the club, the stuff that you used to wear, the tracksuits, you know, even looking back now. And that was certainly a period of where I touched on it to you the other day, where was the first time that, you know, my mum and dad had a sheet given to us. It was, I'm certain her name was Rachel. She was like a girl that came over and said, this is the right food that Danny should be eating. And that was like, wow, you know, they're looking at, you know, at home, your food, it was other aspects of not just playing football. And I think that was a period where things really started changing. You know, it was about diets. It was about, you know, what you were eating, what you were drinking, and I'd not had any of that before. So that was good.
And again, from your time at Crewe before going to Vale, was it a release process, and what was the sort of feedback you got from Crewe, or was it a case Vale signed you from Crewe?
No, Crewe was again, I know you hear it a lot, and I was very, very, it's like a cliche because you do hear it a lot, and it's mad that I was a small player. I wasn't strong. I was right. Very small. I knew that physically I wasn't, you know, there was other lads in the team that were growing way ahead of me, and I was a bit behind. And it was a case of, you know, he's got the ability, you know, he's a bit small, he needs a bit of growing. You know, it always seemed to be that pattern. Whether it was easy to say that, I don't know. Was it an easy way for coaches to just use that? You know, let's give him another couple of years and see where he is then. It always felt like that. He's a good player, but let's see where he is in a couple of years and give us a shout, and that's how it sort of happened at Crewe. And then from Crewe, it was again back into playing at grassroots level locally. Within a year, it never really seemed a lot. It was a season, and then, you know, I was back at Port Vale. Well, I was at Port Vale. That again, you know, we used to play at Madeley then. We used to have the Madeley pitches actually at the high school as a home ground. And then Port Vale was another case. We used to train down at Clough Hall in Kids Grove. And it was just another situation of you were there, and then you know, similar thing. You know, let's see where he is in a couple of years. You know, he needs to build himself up a bit, you know, a bit more strength, a bit more height. And it always seemed to be a similar pattern when you look back.
So how did that affect you then? Because from listening to what you're saying, it seems like it was a bit of a yo-yo process up until sort of the age of 14, where you'd go into an academy, you'd come out, enjoy your best football at grassroots, scoring goals. You'd go into an academy, come out, score goals, get picked up again. And you know, we're at the point now, 14, and you're going back into grassroots. What are you going through at this point? Are you thinking, that's it, I'm never going to make it?
100%, because it's not something new, is it? You know, 5's a really young age to have been around, you know, the academy, you know, level. So all I'd known up to now was you do well, you get your rewards, you get your opportunity playing in an academy again. You do well, and then you start thinking, well, hang on, you know, if I keep doing well and go to an academy level again, is it just going to be a case, you know, a couple of years you're released? And it did start, you know, mentally thinking, is it going to be the same outcome? So I'll be honest with you, when the time I'd left Port Vale, I actually thought then, you know, that was it. I think, you know, you're 14 or whatever, you're growing up, you're becoming a bit of a man, you're starting to life situations and what's going on around you, you're just maturing. So I think then I'd sort of realised that, it's been great, but maybe that's me done now. So
yeah, you've had your chance. I mean, we then move on to sort of 15, so a year back at grassroots. You now get into the age where every young lad, and you know, I assume every young girl, will have outside influences, you know, such as, you know, the opposite sex, maybe the same sex, alcohol, drink, stuff like that. Did that have an effect on your football at that age? And also, how hard was it a distraction to not go out and get yourself involved with that? Do what your mates are doing, but also knuckle down and, you know, try and have that one last chance.
Yeah, I always, funnily enough, I was at that point of thinking, I'm not sure. And then it was at a county. I started playing for the county. Again, luckily for me, Bill Bradley, who had coached me at Crewe, was managing the county team. So it was like, okay, knows me. And what a great team we had. When I look back at that county team now, Tom Gator that was at Stoke, Adam Soane, Nath Shaw, Alistair Cantley, mate, the team was full of lads that had been in a similar situation to me. They'd been at academies, come out, so you knew you had a good group of lads. So we played there for a few years, really good team. So, you know, I was, you know, you do want to do the things with the lads and go out and have fun. And at that, to a point, it still happened. But at the back of your mind, I still wanted to think, you never know. I'm still at county level. You know, it's not like you've just completely gone down to grassroots and that's it. You're still in and around that, you know, with good players. So, yeah, it's a difficult balance, isn't it, that age? It certainly is.
Well, that's it. Moving on and moving forward, we then get contact from Stoke. And, you know, you're back in at 15. You must now be thinking, this is it. I'm back in. I'm at a good age. Surely I must have a good chance of going pro. This
was the biggest shock, definitely. By far now, because I remember high school, Dad coming up, picking me up and saying he'd spoken to someone, they want you at training up at Keele Uni at Stoke again. And I thought, you know, I actually, for the first time, thought I wasn't expecting it. I really wasn't expecting. The other times you hear rumours, and I thought, okay, brilliant, here we go, you know. So, it was. We used to train up at Keele then. Went training. Initially, it was a trial training. There wasn't many games. Then, to be honest with you, at the start, because I was more on a trial basis, so I wasn't really getting chosen for games. This trial then got extended again, and you're thinking, well, you know, do you want me or not? You know, is it a trial? Is it? And obviously now I realise, leading up to the scholarship age, they probably didn't want to make a decision. They were just sort of keeping you on to see, close to that point, whether you were going to stay or get that opportunity. So it came as a massive shock, but obviously it was one that, you know, I thought, you know, if I thought of Vale, it was my last one. I thought, this has got to be the last chance.
So talk to us about that then. Just before, obviously, YTS time and, you know, getting offered a scholar as such now, you're coming up, you mentioned that you're not playing many games.
Yeah.
But you're training. What's going through your head at this point? And as it got closer to decision time, you must have been thinking, you know, the build up, the hard work, you've come full circle.
Yeah.
Was there a lot of stress in terms of how you had to perform trying to get yourself that deal?
Yeah, definitely more then, because like you say, you're maturing. You realise that scholarship, you didn't really understand the YTS stuff, but what is it? Then when you found out, that's sort of your make or break, really. I know there's exceptions in the game still. So that pressure felt a little bit more, it was certainly more pressure on me at the time, and I was enjoying it, not getting picked for games. And then I mentioned to you the other day, it was a Friday night, and it was 2 weeks away from, we knew the date for where they'd sit you down and talk to the lads that were already been there for a lot longer as well. Likes of Swifty that I'd played with at Stoke when I was really young, that was still there. Even for them guys, you knew that time was coming for decisions. So 2 weeks before that, we trained in a game on a Friday at Kiel, played against the team above us, scored a goal in training. And then after, Ronnie Sinclair, Noel Blake came to me mum and dad and said, we've got 2 games. We've got Everton away and Sheffield Wednesday at home, and I want Danny to play in both. So I thought, right, nerves, panic, worry. So we played Everton away in the first game, didn't come on. Part of it was great setup there, great training with the lads. And then we played Sheffield Wednesday, sort of the last game before, the date of, whether you knew where you stood. Came on, scored a goal against Sheffield Wednesday at Kiel. Great feeling, and thought, right, is it luck? Is it timing? I've scored a goal. Surely there must be an opportunity. So obviously it was the week before, and we were back at Kiel on the Friday.
So at that point, then you score that goal, you come on, you make an impact.
Mate, if I'd have missed it, there'd have been something wrong. But I was in the right place.
Well, that's it. Your positioning was right to get in there. And,
yeah.
It always sort of opens or makes a point towards a coach by making that impact in the game. Was there any inclination at that stage that, you've just been brought in for 2 games, right at the end of the cut-off date? Was there any inclination that you weren't going to make the cut?
Up in the air. The only thing telling you was, you knew that the only thing that was against you was, like I said, there was a lot of lads that had stayed there and been there for a long time. So you always knew that they were going to have, there's opportunities. You like to your Pato, Martin Patterson and players like that. There was that group that I'd been seeing, or at a young age they were still there. But you just thought, at the back of my mind, well, they know I've been there when I was young. They know I've been in and around, the other academies. Is this my opportunity now to get that, all the hard work to get that signature and move forward? So, yeah.
Just obviously with the pressure of that, and holding on to the hope that you were going to get this deal, had you prepared anything alongside that in terms of your studies and planned a career out as to, just in case it wasn't going to happen?
Not at all. Apart from me and Ben Mills said we were going to set up a washing car company. No, on a serious note, mate, we nothing at all, mate. No, it had not even, come into my head. There was ideas that had popped in your head, mate, but nothing that when you've played football from such a young age and, thought, you were still going to get the opportunity to be playing and make it one day, the dreams that, of stepping onto that turf at Stoke or whatever, as a professional, you don't think about those things. Well, I hadn't anyway at that age.
This is where the questions become probably a little bit more personal, a little bit harder now, in terms of, you've been in the system from the age of 5 to 15, in and out, always getting picked up, always getting brought back in. After being in for so long and believing you had a chance to make it, the dreaded news and that conversation of that you've not been offered the YTS. Can you remember that day?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I remember sitting down now at the table, mum and dad there, and from what I gather, it was a 2-minute conversation. Thanks for everything, blah. You sort of knew at the start the tone it wasn't going to go the right way, and as soon as you heard the words, unfortunately, everything else was forgotten. There, you weren't listening anymore. You just felt, it was a hard one to take, because that was it. That was when I really felt, well, that's it. That's me done. I've spent a lot of years in different academies and going back to playing football and working hard, and that was the point where it all felt like it had all come crashing down, definitely.
So how did that make you feel, and how much of an impact did it have on you? Obviously, as a footballer as well, thinking, am I going to still stay in the game? Am I still going to go and try and enjoy it? but also as a person, as we mentioned there, you've not really thought about any other avenue apart from being a footballer.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of young lads and young girls will be thinking now. How much of an impact has that had on you?
It was horrible. Fighting back the tears all the way home in the back of the car. Went up to my room, sobbed my eyes out, lying on your bed. Just felt a sense that you'd let people down. You know, you'd go back to, the pressure of, your family being proud of you for so many years. I mean, my mum tells me now and dad, they never felt that at all. Of course they didn't. But you personally, and it was probably the sort of embarrassment as well of having to go back in to your mates and say, no, I've not been offered it, and after all that time, and it was a hard one to take. It was a hard one to get your head round. You've dreamt out, I'd lay in bed at night dreaming of different things, and being a footballer one day, and the things that you could achieve and the things that could happen, and that just to sort of be whipped under your feet. And well, thanks for your efforts. See you later. It was difficult, yeah.
I know, obviously, depending on the club now, it's a little bit different in terms of exit trials and support to find you another club. Was there any of that after that conversation of, try these or try there?
No, you were put on this sort of database thing. I remember that, where there was clubs around that would know of your name. You'd been, you hadn't made the cut and opportunities, but no, there was no support at all. There was no one that had come and see you after how you were feeling. There was no, apart from your family at home, reassuring you that things weren't actually that bad, that there's more to life. No, there was nothing. No, yeah, that was it. You just moved on.
So where did you go from there then, Danny? Age of 15, 16, did you go straight back into grassroots football, or had you had enough?
I was very lucky, actually, very lucky. And a guy that I've got a lot of time for and a lot of thanks for was a guy called Kevin Sheldon. So at the time at Stoke, his son Adam Sheldon was at Stoke. Within a week of probably days of things settling down, I had a phone call from Kev, who was managing Leek over at Leek at the time. Got a good team together, put his arm around me and basically said, Dan, you're a good player. I feel I can get a lot out of you. Come over here. We've got a great team, great setup. We're playing at a good level. And that was it. He was a bit of a saving grace, because at the time I've spoken to you, there was a lot going on at this time in my personal life with my own dad being ill. He'd been ill for quite a number of years. At the time, he'd got a drug and an alcohol addiction. So I was going through a lot of that as well as, so it was good time. It was good timing for me to take me away from what was going on at home, to keep me on a football pitch was so important. Keep me on that pitch, keep me playing football, scoring goals, smiling, lads around me. That was so important, massive.
I'm not going to allude to it as rock bottom, but in terms of trying to get a career in the game, you've been released. You're probably feeling, as you mentioned, quite low. To have somebody who's seen you play and know of you put his arm around you and say, listen, I know you're a good player.
Yeah.
How much is that of a boost?
Massive. Honestly, Kev not only made me feel good at the right time when I needed it, he took me to a football team that was as good as any academy. The players that were there, James Sheldon was there. We'd got, I could name all the players, but I'll miss someone and feel bad. But we've got a great team. And Kev was clever, because these were lads that had been at academies and he was putting together over at Leek. But he'd done something that no other manager had done to me. Dave Kevin was good when I was young. Don't take that away. He was very good with the players, and I still speak to Dave now and then. But what he did in terms of personally, one-to-one, speaking to me, I think he knew that there was probably things going on at home as well. But what he did, and for those next few years, he probably got better out of me then than I'd played at any other time. Felt fitter, felt better, and the game had improved. His coaching skills, everything about it was brilliant.
So at this point then, you're playing well with a lot of lads who've played at a high level, with a strong team such as Leek. Are you starting to think maybe we could do something here and get noticed through the lower leagues?
Yeah, I think I'd accepted or told myself that, okay, this is still a good level, you know. You're playing at league. I'd take Saturday football still, and you know, you're still around good clubs. And at that age, we were playing on the ground at league. I remember us going to Wigan away. You know, that was a good experience because Kevin played at Wigan, so you were still around that scene of playing at nice grounds. And we played Wigan at home, and we got shown around the ground and the club shop, and it felt good. You know, it felt like you were still part of something. Okay, I'd taken out already the idea of ever getting any higher than that, but I still certainly thought that there was opportunities in and around that Saturday football semi-professional still, definitely.
So from your experience then, what could be done more by clubs to help support youngsters wanting a career in the game and facing that? And obviously recently we've learned of, you know, the young lad Jeremy Whiston at Man City who tragically, you know, took his own life because of, I'm not going to say just because of the frustrations of football. There may have been other stuff that, you know, we'll never be aware of. However, you know, what more could be done to support players psychologically when this dream, something they've worked like yourself for 10 years, 15 years to get to, is then taken away?
I think there's certainly got to be, look, you hear it all the time, and I know there's a lot of people trying to do the right things. There's got to be some kind of real good support network, because I'd wasted, I know it sounds odd, but you've wasted a lot of time of a lot of your people skills and being around people. You've been in an academy situation. You even at the age of 14, 15, you know, lads go on further. I mean, obviously when I was at Leek, my mum and dad were great. They got me in working. They got me working at a young age. But what you've got to think is these lads, you know, like the lad we've just spoken about, and so many other situations, when they get told this at 18, 19, or whatever it may be, maybe a bit later, they've not gone through that working with real, you know, people around them, you know, real life situations. You know, that's something that when you get told you've not got and thrown into that, man, it's hard work. And I certainly think that there's got to be some kind of network, somewhere you can go, somewhere you can spend, even if it's a couple of months, just doing that winding down process of taking you away from what you've known to putting you back into, you know, well, this is where you're going to be now. I know it's not right, and it's not what you want to hear. It's not the end of the world. People telling you the reassurance of it's not the, you know, not the end of the world now. Okay, it was a great thing that you had, but there's this to go on and achieve, and you can go into coaching, you can become a manager. You can. There's so many other opportunities out there, but when you don't know that and it's taken away, you need someone there to tell you this. Definitely.
So you touched on it there. How important was your support network of family and friends then at that time?
Huge, massive, yeah. You know, just having people around you to, you know, your mum, your dad, people to say, look, you know, you've done well. It's not the end of the world. Look, there's this, there's that. It takes a bit of time, but you know, and like I say, touching on what Kev did, he did something that a manager had never done, and it was Saturday night phone calls, Friday night phone calls, one-to-one talking about the things you were doing wrong, the things that you were good at. And he made you feel good. It made you feel that the manager knows you. So the support network of, you know, families is important, and having people around you. And if you've not got that as well, then luckily for me, I had it. It must be 10 times as hard.
I mean, that quite a popular quote in terms of coaching. It has just popped into my head there in terms of a player doesn't care what you know until they know that you care. Mm-hmm. From what you've just said there with Kevin Sheldon, was that he showed that he actually cared about you as a person, and therefore got more out of you as a player. Would you say that's something that coaches really need to drive home and, you know, get into their coaching?
Yeah, even if it's once a week, even if, you know, a manager gets to sit down with players individually, not the guy that he's working with or someone at the club or a well-being, you know, person, a well-being that's there to support you, the manager, the guy that you look up to, the guy that's picking you on a Saturday or a Sunday, the guy that you want to impress. You need that person talking to you one-to-one to, you know, and I think you take on more of the things that you're doing wrong when that person tells you as well, not someone else. So having them talk to you, I think that is important. There should be more of that, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, just slightly going off track here, I think it's possibly the only industry where we handpick our players, bring them in, and then tell them that they're not good enough. You know, we have to, as coaches, for me, take ownership and I'm stealing this from a guy called Steve Salis, who's an absolute genius, that it's the only industry, like I say, where we handpick our players and then tell you you're not good enough. So I think as coaches, we need to do more. If we handpick you, we need to develop you more.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, you know, different coaches that will probably tell you different things and different ways in which they could look. I've never been a coach. Okay, I've gone on to doing a bit of managing now. I've never been a coach, you know, and I think it's certainly, like you say, if you're going to take that risk and say, look, this guy's got something, and then a few years down the line to say, nah, actually he's not quite where we are, you know, where we thought he'd be. You've got to support that person. There's got to be something. There's got to be something out there, definitely.
Slightly moving forward to obviously where you're at now personally, you alluded to it. And for anybody listening who has either been released or is in that process, it's not the end of the world. Danny, you're doing really well for yourself at the minute. Those who know you will know how driven and passionate you are in all aspects of your life. A brand new warehouse for your business. How's that been? Obviously during 2020, which has been a year of madness, going into a brand new business. Yeah,
stressful. No, it has been hard. It's been, like you say, I'm a passionate person. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I've always been like that, whether it's through experiences in life or things that I don't know. It's just the way I am. And I've always been, you know, wanting to aim for that next level. This was a big move. Like I say, I'm not alone in this. You know, I've got great guys, Wayne and Simon, and the business partners, and the team that we've got. It's been hard. It's been a tough year in general for everyone, you know, not just me, you know, for everyone. You know, everyone's been at some point low or things to deal with. This has been a big move. It's been a stressful one, a worrying one, especially with the times. But if we got through Brexit, we got through the first lockdown, we were in the second lockdown. So what do? Do you sit there and worry about things that you've got no control over, or do you take each day as it comes? And that's exactly what we do. So, but as things are, mate, it's good. And I'm enjoying it, definitely.
So slightly going back to the football then, setting up a business in the warehouse move, why decide to go into management then?
I've always seen myself as a people person, not so much on the coaching side. You know, that's where the experts are, like yourself, mate. Not just saying it because you're there, but it's a tough job. I've always wanted a shot at managing. Always wanted to, you know. I think when you've been at that young level and had so many different coaches that have done so many different styles of play or managers, I think you feel that actually, you know, I want to pass something on. I want to give something back to lads, and I've always wanted that opportunity to get out there. And when Mick at Kidsgrove, you know, was on, you know, we were talking about doing a reserves team and something alongside the club. With the facilities and everything they've got there, mate, I just jumped at the chance, mate. I didn't even think twice. So yeah, it was straight in, and yeah, straight in and crack on, yeah.
Straight in as a manager then, how are you finding that? What has been the hardest thing so far?
Hardest thing, mate, and it sort of molds around the whole conversation we've had tonight, is letting lads down. But seeing how the lads react as well, because look, it's difficult. I'm not afraid to tell lads that they're not playing. I'm not afraid to tell lads where they're going wrong. There's been situations this season where you've done that and lads have come back better and stronger and are now playing week in, week out. There's been lads that have thrown a tracksuit on the floor and walked off and not giving it. And they are the tough things, because it's not that I'm not saying that lad's not capable. You're trying to give those lads the right points to improve and what they need to do, and that gets to you, because you think you could have been a good player, but you've not given me the opportunity to work with you. That's the tough side of it, definitely.
Yeah. So how important then is that we've alluded to now? How are you finding that people side of things rather than the footballer side of things?
Yeah, it's great. Really enjoying it. Really, like I said, I think that's my strength, getting the best out of lads from my own experience, an arm around, something that you don't forget you want to pass on. Someone who can put their arm around you, big you up when things aren't so good. Talk to you about things that are going on off the pitch. It's not all about the football. Talk to them personally. Is there something on your mind? Is there something you can help with? Because you can tell in some lads, I've done it already this season, where there's been things, and I think that side, and seeing the rewards when that lad has a good game and he smiles at the end, or he comes in, you know, gives you a fist pump. You won't, not a handshake, but in getting a win, you saw us the other week and what it meant, and that side of things I really enjoy, definitely.
So what's the plan now? Because obviously you're very driven. Where do you want to go with this? I'm going to say management lark. Is it a hobby for now, or is it something that maybe you want to chase further down the line?
It's a hobby for now, definitely. I can't, with work and that, you've got to be realistic, mate. You can't. There's a lot going on. Wayne always says to me, if someone asked you to go at a higher level as manager, I'd struggle not to do it. Obviously, there's a lot of work that's got to go into that with badges and things, as you know full well. You can't just jump up. But at the minute, mate, it's certainly a hobby. It's certainly something I'm enjoying. But I'm lucky to be with a club and a setup that's good and around good players. So it's a great experience at the minute.
Always makes it that little bit easier. Obviously, for some that may not know you, obviously a little bit of a personal question here in terms of an expectant father. Am I right in saying that you're not sure if it's a boy or a girl?
No, we're not finding out, mate. No, 26th of January. Surprise. Yeah, it's a nice surprise, mate. It's I'm looking forward to it.
A little bit of a personal question here. Let's fast forward 10 years. Your child is excelling at football or another sport and is being scouted by a host of clubs, or sort of. I'll have to edit that bit, but we'll go back to. So it's been scouted by a host of clubs.
Yeah.
What decision are you making here as a parent? Having been through every emotion as a player, would you allow your child to go into such a cutthroat industry with the emotions, or stay with their mates as long as possible?
I certainly wouldn't hold them back. Certainly wouldn't stop them from wanting to go on and achieve things at a better level. What I would probably do, and this is something that my dad couldn't really do for me, was my dad, although I hear he wasn't a bad player, never played at that level to get released, to get the emotions, to understand what I'll have probably felt. So this is something where you can say to your own child, should that happen, no pressure whether they do or don't. But I would certainly get them a little bit more grounded to think, Luke, I've been there. It's not a nice feeling if it does happen. So just try and feed that into their mind along the process, that look at other things. It might not happen. Just enjoy it while it's there. You want the best for them. You want them to enjoy it as well. But if it ever got to a point where they were really low and not, I certainly wouldn't, I wouldn't want them going through that. Not at all.
So some would possibly say, Danny, that you decided to go in at the deep end in 2020, a new business, football, and becoming a father. What advice then would you give to any young player who's listening to this episode on chasing a career as a player?
Just just work hard at it. Enjoy it though as well. Just make sure that you still go and do those things that are important. Don't waste any. I mean, I didn't really, like I say, wasn't as strict back then. Don't waste your time with your mates and your childhood and doing the things you want to do, because I realise now, I'm only 33. I'm not speaking like I'm an old man, but life's precious, and in memories and enjoying it as well. So, just bear in mind that this could happen. You've got to, there's lads that, as you know, we're friends with lads that are still playing football now. Jake Malt's done really well for himself. His brother Louis, Ben Mills, had a good career. And these lads, you think to yourself, what did they do different to me? And they worked hard. They're very professional. They've done well, well for themselves at playing at a good level. They've worked really hard, and I'm sure they'd say the same thing. I know Jake's got, 2 lads that are doing well in the academy at the minute, and I'm sure it's the same conversation. He won't push them, but you've just got to explain to them that there's more out there. There's more out there than just football, and if it does happen, so be it.
Superb advice. Is there any regrets then, Danny, looking back, anything you would do differently if you could go and do it all again?
No, because again, is it all things that I'm a massive believer of, things that have happened in your life make you and mold you the person that you are. I wouldn't change it. Could I have tried a little bit harder and pushed myself? I sometimes think yes. Is that just the fact that because of what happened, maybe I could have trained that a little bit harder? I always thought I did, but Did I not? It's just buts and ifs and all the rest of it. But I wouldn't change anything, mate. No, not to how I am now as a person, how I feel, and and trying to help other people. I think it's all been good.
Just before, obviously, we wrap up the episode with I'm going to say quick fire question round. It's never quick. I just want to thank you, really, Danny, for speaking so sort of openly and candidly about your experience. And I know, speaking off air, it was quite a tough time for you on and off the pitch. So to take the time out of your day and speak to us about it, we really want to thank you for that here at PCT Coaching.
No, thank you very much, mate. Appreciate it.
This is the bit where I really put you on the spot now, and you get to maybe have your own back at a few friends or foes.
Yeah.
First question: best moment in football to date.
My best moment in football, and this is going to be a shock, was scoring a hat-trick for Port Vale against West Brom. This will come as a shock for a few people. One, because it was the first hat-trick I'd scored at academy level. And two, you don't forget it, do you? You don't forget that moment. It was that first hat-trick, and again, it was at a time where my dad wasn't well. At the time, he was in a wheelchair, actually, at the side of the pitch. And his reaction is something, you won't forget. The reaction, the whole scoring your first hat-trick, for the kind of, okay, it was the Vale, unfortunately. But yeah, that's a moment that always still lives with me now. A moment I really enjoyed, yeah.
Just for those that are listening, as an avid Stoke fan, did you kiss the badge when he scored the hat-trick?
Never, not at all. Never.
We had to ask. Well, okay, that was your best moment. What's been your biggest wow moment? Is there anything where you've stood there, your drawers dropped and you've just gone, wow?
Mate, that's a good question, mate. Wow moment. I think just in general, mate, there's been so many people along the way, managers, a crew. You'd have Dario Gradi on a Friday doing a training session at Stoke. I got very close to Lou. My dad's still good friends with Lou Macari, and just people around that, seeing players, Mark Steen, as a young lad when you're training, coming in and seeing him. Luckily for me, there's been a lot of wow moments, mate. I couldn't pick out an individual. I've been lucky to be around some good people in football, and I still get that wow feeling when I see Joe Allen now, mate. So that won't
change. Mate, no, I agree. Our very first episode was with Rory Delap, and for me to sit here and try and host a podcast as a bit of a fanboy and a Stoke fan was
it's hard, isn't it?
It was very tough. Very tough. Who's your best friend in football, Danny?
Best friend in football. Oh, mate, these are very good questions, Martin. There's been a lot of friends in football. I would probably say, from a friend that I've known throughout a lot, would probably be Muzza, Tom Moores. Muzza, and that's purely down to the fact that me and Muzza played together from a very young age, and all the time that I was in an academy and back, and then I was always playing in teams with him. We played at the county and the school. So I've gone through a lot of time playing football with Muzza. So he knows me. He knows my game more than most people. And, and the things, he knows how to push me buttons. He knows the things to wind me up. And luckily, like later in football, I've got, lucky enough to become close with Chris Owolumo, or Iwalamo before he corrects me. So he's been, in football, that's good, and for his career, and be able to speak to him about what he did. And again, that makes you realise the pressures that they were under, going through the whole process. But he's been a good person to speak to, and over the last few years.
Who's been your toughest opponent?
Toughest opponent, and he's gonna love this, but it's a lad called Adam Sohn. Adam, I played with at Port Vale. Adam was there when I went to Vale. He was already there as a centre back, and I knew he was good playing with him. You knew he was solid, and then I came up against him against Stone Dominoes for League, and it made me realise what a player he was. I think he doesn't realise to this day how good he was, and I know he had issues with injuries, but he was a hell of a player. He was solid, even from a young age. I never got a sniff in against him, mate. So he was a good player.
Who's the best trainer you've seen? So in terms of like effort, attitude, work rate, someone that really went, I need to be like him.
I would probably say Adam Sheldon. And that's really harsh on James because they're twin brothers, and now he's probably not going to like that. But I think at a young age, Adam was.
James will hate that.
He will. No, but Adam, as a young age, was very professional. I know he'd stayed at Stoke and then came back out, and he'd been there for a long time. But I remember at a young age, I don't know whether it was because his dad was manager, but the way he'd focus, the way he would train, how professional he was, the extra little runs. I mean, Adam and James they did do a lot of extra work. But I used to look at Adam and think, he's pretty good, he is, isn't he? The way he carries himself out, during training, after training, he was good. Yeah.
I was fortunate to have Adam as my captain in my first year as management, and yeah, you could see by the way he carried himself, he was good at what he did, very professional.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Who's the best player you've played with?
That's definitely the hardest. Only just purely down to the fact that you've played with lads at a young age. Growing up at county level, then going on. There's been a number of players. I mean, Muzza, to my opinion, could have and should have done a lot better than he did. Technically, he was great. Around about the county, there was a lad called Az Taylor that was a brilliant player. James, Adam, Liam Rowley, the list goes. There's been so many good players. You've been in so many different teams. It's not like you've just been stuck with one team, but that probably played with. Okay, I didn't get many opportunities to play with him at all, but training and alongside would probably be Martin Patterson. Purely down to the fact that towards that end at Stoke, you sensed that lad was, and he did. He went on to play in Burnley and other teams, and he went on to have a decent career, a good career in football, compared to myself. But you knew then that the way he was, his strength, the way he could finish a shot. Bearing in mind, he was in the position that I was wanting to play in. He'd got something special, and being able to actually train with someone like that and see he's certainly again a player that you'll never forget seeing.
Fantastic. Who's been your biggest role model or influence in football?
Influence, role model. I can't help but thank my dad. If it wasn't for him and the work that he put in as a young lad and travelling and watching me during games and sticking by you, and that's certainly important. Role model, I keep going back and influences to Kev Sheldon. I don't know whether it was because it was a part of my life personally where I was going through a hell of a lot with my own, with my own dad, spending a hell of a lot of hours at hospitals, years, in fact, not just time, years of, not seeing him. And I think Kev took me, I don't know, you just don't forget. And I don't think sometimes, you probably haven't spoke to him since leaving, what he actually did to help me as a player. But, there's a lot of role models, people are in and around football, but yeah, all the coaches, I mean, I know some I feel could have done more. Dave Kevin as a young lad was very good. I always remember, and he always speaks highly now, and I always speak highly of him. So again, there's been quite a number, mate, but they stick out.
Fantastic. This has probably been the most difficult one for all of our guests. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Passionate, emotional, driven.
Nice, I like that. Is there anybody you would recommend or like to hear on our podcast?
Joe Allen.
I will try.
Joe, or I'd like to get Chris on. Actually, I'm going to speak to Chris because there's a lot of the things that Chris has told me that I'd like to hear a little bit more in depth. So I'm sure I'll have a word and see if we can get him on, mate.
I'll hit you up offline for that one. That brings us to an end on the episode. Danny, again, I want to say thank you, mate, for giving up your time. I know it's late now at night and you're still in the office to join us on the podcast, and wish you all the best moving forward with your business and also the birth of your child. Stay safe, mate, and absolutely no doubt that we'll speak soon.
Thanks a lot, buddy. Take care.
Cheers, mate. Take care.
Mate.
Hello, we are Tile Central UK, local tile stockist here on Trentham Trade Park, Stanley Matthews Way. Our opening hours are 8 till 5 in the week and Saturdays till 12.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the content that we're trying to bring to you. Don't forget, new episodes will be released every Monday. You can find us on the iTunes Store, Spotify, and if you want to see the video, you can see it on our YouTube channel, PCT Football Coaching.